everyone, and welcome back to the Organizing to Victory podcast, where we're talking garage politics. My name's Lee Perry, and today I have a very special guest, Tim Ayers, who is a Florida Democratic Party state committee man and the new chair of the Orange County Senior Caucus. We talk about all the ways that we can engage seniors that are aging out of politics and bring them back into the political world, making sure that seniors are not left behind and that we're actively finding ways to engage them. We also talk about going deeper into communities that are marginalized by the political world and see how we can re-engage and reinvigorate voters and really showing up on these policies to make sure that everyone can feel the positive impacts of politics. This is my conversation with Tim. All right, everyone, we have a very special guest today. His name is Tim Ayers, and he's not only a co-lead for the state committee member, but he's also the president of the Senior Caucus. So welcome.
Welcome. Glad to be here.
Hi. So, Tim, I see you everywhere.
Uh-oh.
And you always have this generational knowledge. You whenever we're in a meeting, you're like, remember that time when, and you have all of this knowledge of Florida. But I don't know if many people know where you came from and where you got your start.
I'm originally from Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
Cut my teeth in politics when I was in fourth grade, if you will.
Yeah.
Actually, fifth grade, I'm sorry. I convinced my fifth grade teacher to hold an election for class president. I gave the idea, I campaigned, and then there was a late-minute candidate who beat me by 30 votes. So she got most of the votes of the classmates in the room. She was the daughter of the college coach in our hometown of Springfield, Ohio.
But that didn't stop you.
And did not stop me. And I stayed volunteering in local campaigns. And when I was a senior in high school, prior to graduating high school, I was given the offer of being a page in the Ohio House of Representatives. And that led to the position of assistant clerk of the Ohio House of Representatives, in which I've served, I believe, for 4 years, I believe. And then shortly after that, I said, I looked around and I said, I can do this. And I decided to run for county commissioner, lost that race, I think it was 52 to 48% against the former Democratic incumbent in a primary. And then the next year, I decided to run for city council in my hometown, won that. Became vice mayor shortly thereafter, and then the gentleman who was the mayor decided to step down. I was appointed mayor and then ran on my own and became the mayor of my hometown, and that's what got me into politics.
That's a lot for fourth grade.
I know.
I'm shocked.
I know. Off of actually fifth grade. After fifth grade election, our family was well known in Springfield. For basketball, mainly for sports. And so people knew me from either my brothers or my achievements at the State House.
Well, that's very impressive, and I'm excited to talk more about it. But was your family just always politically plugged in?
My mother was. There was an agency called the Citizens Opportunity Program, COP for short, which was a strange name given it was the 60s, but she was the director of that, and it was to help low-income families rise, if you will, above their circumstances. And so we were kind of kept, even though she kind of kept us away from, what was going on during all that period, we were aware of the issues that our country was facing, and she kept us politically active. You always had to go with her. I come from a family of 7 siblings, plus myself, 8 kids. All 8 of us would have to walk down the street, or when she'd go voting, all 8 of us would have to walk into the voting place. We didn't go into the booth with her, and watch her vote. So it was important from her perspective that we understand what voting meant.
Mm. And what were you seeing in Ohio at that time? What were you seeing? Well,
when I came of age, people have to talk about me knowing a little history. I'm a history buff. And so at the time I was coming of age in middle school and high school, Democrats were winning control of the Senate.
Okay.
And we had control in many states of the South. Roughly in 72, when Nixon started his Southern strategy and then Reagan perfected it, we started losing the South, but we maintained the Midwest. And so that kept us in control for a number of years. At our high point, kept us in control of the Senate. The House was always Democratic. And so we were a powerful party during those years of the 60s, 70s, and we started losing control of the House first and then later the Senate in the 80s under the Reagan and Bush administrations. Mm-hmm. So I saw powerful men, and I say that with some regret because back then, as I was growing up, you didn't see as many women in politics at the time. That was just starting. So men, Democratic men, take control in the Senate and at the national level. So that was how I cut my teeth in politics, by being afforded a seat at watching that take place.
Well, after you're mayor, don't you want to just retire and throw in your hat and just say, I'm done?
I did. I did. I remember having the moment at home, someone called me and said their trash didn't get picked up. I was 29 years old. And I'm thinking, I have done this for, at that point, 7 years. And I said, do I want to spend, because there was no term limits in our city, do I want to spend the rest of my 30s taking, and I'm a public servant at heart, but do I want to answer calls on trash pickup and some of the other stuff you do in public life? And I concluded at that point, no. And I got out of politics, I think for 5 years, moved to another state, worked for the moved to Tennessee, worked for the Nashville Chamber of Commerce. And I did have I ran for a public office then. I was the state committee person in Senate District 15. Served that for 2 years. That was an elected position. Voters had to elect you to that position, unlike what we do here. And so that was really my last public office after that. Okay.
And then what brought you to Florida?
A friend of mine, I had a brother who coached here. He coached for the Orlando Magic. He was the assistant coach for I forget what years he was here, but he came back 2 times to be the assistant coach under Coach Hill. So I kind of was aware of Orlando. Came here a number of times to watch basketball games. But a friend of mine on Facebook invited me to work on the 2014 campaign of Charlie Crist for governor when he tried to regain his seat back. And I said, okay, I'll come down. And my intent was to only stay 6 months because that would have been the duration of my contract. But the weather kept me here longer. The people I met even longer. And I've been here ever since. I'm going into my 13th year here. So
cool. Well, I mean, it sounds like you didn't want to carry the responsibility of being the face, but you never really got burnt out of being active in politics. Like, did you ever have a period where you were like, I'm throwing my hat in fully? Like, I don't even want to think about politics anymore?
I never had that. Because I think that's the obligation of every citizen.
Right.
Even if you're just a voter, that it's your obligation to participate in some form or fashion in the public square. I think that's extremely important. There are times when I say, ooh, I can do that better. But then, my brain kicks in and says, no, I don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm at in life at this stage. I want to help young people, new voices, if you will, get in the public arena and do their thing.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, everybody can find a place. Everybody can find their piece of that pie in order to retain our democracy. Absolutely. And help folks get over the finish line. I think the reason why I was asking you about getting burnt out is that many people that find themselves to this podcast, or at least my target audience, are the people that are tired of hearing the same promises that aren't being necessarily kept from both sides of the political spectrum, and have kind of thrown politics out of their minds. And I want to re-inspire them to find their piece of that picture, because it might not necessarily have to be that you have to be extremely hands-on or extremely maybe the face of a campaign, but you can work behind the scenes and help good people get elected.
Let me ask you, I'm going to interview you on this one question only. I think people have an unrealistic view of how the system works.
For sure.
And because of that, I think they get frustrated and they say, why should I vote? Because nothing has really changed. Yeah. And what I mean by that, the system that was set up for good or bad by our founding fathers is a system where compromise or standing on your principle, you have to know which to do.
Right.
And sometimes when the parties, if you will, compromise, people get mad because, if you're a Democrat, you don't want Democrats to compromise with Republicans and vice versa. Or if you stand on your principle, particularly if you're the minority party, well, you may not get anything, particularly here in Florida. So my only question to you today is, how then do you convince those people who asked you what you just stated to still participate?
That's a great question. And I think it's actually the root of something that I've been trying to tap into with these conversations in a much deeper way, because people want instant gratification. Everything around us is accelerating. Technology, you can get a package of whatever it is that you want at your door within 24 hours. And I think we're constantly, you can Google something and get an instant answer. And I think we're training ourselves to want that instant gratification. And so politics and government is very slow. But Trump, for example, is delivering because he's running the government like a corporation. He's going in and he's saying, do it. And then he's removing anyone that says, hey, but the law, or, hey, but the way we've always done it is, or, hey, with public dollars, you're at risk of being sued if. And then on the other side, with Democrats, we're very scared to, for our own public image, to color outside of the lines, to use money in a way that, maybe we can fund some new nonprofits that don't have 5 years of bookkeeping, that we know are in the streets putting diapers on babies and feeding the community. But because we're so bureaucratically focused on the rules, the governmental shift is very slow when Democrats are in power, because we want to do everything slowly. And that's what happened with Biden in the Inflation Reduction Act. Incredible ideas, but he couldn't get the money into the communities fast enough.
Absolutely.
Because they were checking all these boxes and trying to do everything right, which took years. And then he couldn't sell the story, not just because of his age, but because the money wasn't making it into the projects and getting the implementation done fast enough for the election year. And so the way that I think we can fix that demand for instant gratification is we have to elect people who know how to tell the story and keep up with that need for instant gratification. Most candidates and most elected officials barely know how to use their calendar, let alone social media, let alone go live on just like Facebook. And people now are starting to expect wanting to see that. And what I'm terrified of is, if you look at the gubernatorial race right now, there's this very dangerous candidate named Fishback, who is taking a lot of the populist messaging, telling an excellent story on social media, and is getting a lot of national attention, but is a through and through racist who is a groyper and has said things like he wanted to see Don Lemon lynched openly, and is still gaining traction and gaining followers from Democrats and Republicans because he also is unapologetic in how he's speaking on taking on data centers and taking on things. And then you look at, some of our other candidates in that race, and you barely see anything coming out of their campaigns, right?
Absolutely.
But it shouldn't stop with campaigning. Like, you should be out and about in the community. I mean, Ana Eskamani is a great example, but I want to also stress that I don't want people to feel like they have to be Ana Eskamani's level, because I think that's a little unrealistic, because some people have families and deserve to have days off and nights off. But to have a camera on your person everywhere you go, and to not tell the story of all the good that's happening, all the people you're meeting, I think there's a new generation of people that want to see that. And that's how we can not only win, but prove we're delivering.
You should interview yourself one day.
I would drive myself insane. My poor husband, but thank you for asking that, because everyone wants to talk about things in a like the Democratic Party right now. They did this autopsy, and everyone wants to talk about like pointing fingers, and not enough solutions are being talked about.
Yes.
And in my opinion, it's like, yeah, we can open up the books and look at the autopsy and point fingers all day long. What do we do now? Because there's still people in office today that are throwing votes around and not telling the story about their why behind their votes. And I think that's the reason why Democratic, in a time when Trump is like burning the whole system down, Democrats still have low approval ratings, because people are like, what are you doing for me right now? And so many people are just not telling that story of what they're doing, what they're fighting for, or how they're voting.
You have to give voters a reason why they should come to you.
Or even care.
Right. And we traditionally have not done a good job, whether it's nationally, statewide, sometimes even locally. Now, locally, our DEC, Democratic Executive Committee, for those who may not know, has done a better job. We were one of 5 or 6 counties that stayed Democratic during the last cycle. We'll probably do as well this cycle, if not better. We have some great candidates running at the local level and at the federal level. So we'll see, but we have to put in the work to be successful.
Now, what a lot of folks tell me with regards to like outreach in the African-American community is that you have to really go above and beyond to meet people where they're at, especially since so many of our policies have purposefully kept marginalized communities behind. Many communities across the country that are Black, Hispanic, some of them don't have access to internet. Many don't have the same advantages in life from walkable communities, intersectional communities where they can get access to basic things like community centers within walking distance or whatever it is. And because of that, I think there's a little bit of an obstacle that we still haven't figured out how to overcome as Democrats to get into the communities and actually build within these communities. I think my biggest issue with Democrats is that we want instant gratification as well in the party, where we want to like go out and knock doors and get the vote.
Right. 3 months before the election.
Yeah. Is that the solution? How do we change that?
No, let me add something to that list which I agree with is and I'm not from here, but this is my observation about Orange County or the city of Orlando's traditional African-American neighborhoods. As most communities, but particularly with respect to African-American neighborhoods, they're aging out. And as a consequence, people between your age, and I don't even know your age, and I'm not going to ask you, and whatever age older than you, I'll say until 55, don't live in large numbers in those neighborhoods. And that's the demographic, typically in African-American communities, that votes. And then you get the impediments that have been enacted over the last 30 years, particularly in the last 5 to 10, that keep people from voting. Mm-hmm. I remember the first time I moved here, I had a red Chevy truck. And I was getting out of that truck to go knock on doors, drop off literature, et cetera, et cetera. And 2 boys, they couldn't have been older than 14, walked up to me and they said, "Hey, you're the guy that picks up vote by mail ballots." At the time, I didn't know what a vote by mail ballot was because we call it something different in Ohio. And I said, "No, that's not me." And then I went to do what I was doing and they kept walking down the sidewalk. I figured out what they were talking about, and I figured out who they were talking about and why they said it, because we had the same type of truck. That was the only common denominator between that gentleman and me. I eventually met him years after that. And so seniors, I learned, depend on vote by mail ballots because many of them, some of them, not many of them, some of them can't get out. And so if I just said that African-American neighborhoods are aging out and the bulk of those people being left in those neighborhoods, not all of them, but are older people, and you are slowly taking away their means in which to participate, that's a problem. And the party being in the minority for the last 30 years is not going to get it back. And that's why people, in some instances, have given up. There has to be true engagement. You know, we carry both a blessing and a burden in the inner West Side neighborhoods. The blessing is you're always going to get a Democratic candidate to win. The burden is, with the exception of some, I don't have to try that hard.
Right.
And so therefore, we have contested races, but we don't have competitive races in the near West Side. Now, the further you go out west, I live in Ocoee, that's not the case. You do have competitive races. The East Side, the South Side, to a lesser extent, even the North, they have competitive races.
Right.
Whether in August or in November, they're going to have pretty competitive races. And until you have that consistently in the near West Side, you're not going to have the investment because you invest parties and interest groups invest their dollars in races they need.
Right.
If the assumption is you're going to always have a Democratic candidate win, why should I invest money there?
Do you think that, and obviously folks that live on the West Side are not a monolith, but do you think that the batch of candidates that have been running, some of which have been running for years and years and years, the same faces, the same names, do you think that people are satisfied with their options? Or do you think that because the lack of competitiveness, that they're just picking, they're kind of exhausted, they're just picking whoever's name is there just because it's the same names? Or like, is there still a desire to really have some fresh new voices?
Well, I'm going to get in trouble for this,
Okay.
so I'm going to blame you afterward.
That's fine.
Fresh doesn't always mean better.
Right.
But I do say because West, with the possible exception of Winter Garden, but even there, that's growing in Democrats, and Apopka. But again, it's just a different type of Democrat out there. You got to run candidates who will match the demographic they're running in, or the area or the territory they're running in.
Right.
Secondly, I think there is a desire for new voices, but again, if the communities are aging out, I can say this, I'm 67 years old. Why would I venture to get in a race at 67 years of age? Not that seniors don't have the mindset to do it, we do, but we want to hear from new voices. And those new voices aren't stepping up because politics is not a kid sport.
No.
It can be brutal. and people have to weigh the cost to their family, to their own reputation. And so I think from what I hear in the conversations I participate in, they have withdrawn from consideration, let's say. There was a candidate 2 years ago who was going to run, who had thought of running in City Commission District 5 and just said, I can't. You know, my career path has me, you know, doing X, Y, Z, and I think I can get there, but I can't get there if the race descends into mud.
Right.
And typically, that's what political races do. And it's not by candidates, it's typically by those of us who volunteer in those races.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I can get myself into a lot of trouble by saying this. I was against the redistricting at the county level.
I was too.
I spoke out against it.
You mean the original plan to put it on the ballot?
To put it on the voter guide.
Okay.
As a yes, when everyone at the Democratic Party side was voting on all 10. And Commissioner Sumrad and I fought it because I just didn't feel like the data was up to date, because I don't think the 2020 census was accurate.
I agree.
And I thought 2030 is right around the corner.
Let's wait.
Why do we need to do this now? Can we wait? Especially since, it's going to cost a lot of money to redo these offices. We're about to get a new mayor. I just felt like this was not the time. And from an advocate standpoint, going to the dais and begging for 2 more votes is so hard. I'd rather the data be really, really accurate so that we could do it right. So I'm a little worried that there is a huge shift happening. They keep saying 1,500 people are moving here every single week. They keep quoting, I'm sure that's slowed down by now, but I think a lot of things are changing in our communities. And I think that's going to have an impact on being able to proactively organize in communities and recruit and retain, relationships with voters. And so I'm a little worried with that regard, because I just feel like we were a little premature in redistricting, especially since people just voted. And now we have 15 state races locally and 7 now county level races. And we have this many donors to pull from, and all the congressional redistricting is going to be happening now as well. And so it's going to be, it's a huge undertaking for 2026 that I'm a little worried about.
And in one of those districts, newer districts that was created, you have, as of yesterday, 15 candidates who have filed to run, who don't understand the political demographics of that district and who votes more than other areas or neighborhoods in that district. And unless you understand that and county issues, other than putting your name on the ballot, why are you running? Right. Is what I would ask.
Yeah. I mean, I will say I like the idea of, since redistricting did happen and I lost the argument.
I've lost a few, so we're in the same company.
I do like the idea of having a bunch of people engaging their bases with the hope that everyone will pay attention. So I hope that all 15 will work collectively to make sure that all of their little micro bases are paying attention, but not to give up after the primary, to keep them. I hope they all commit to running a really good, clean campaign without having to bash and create a lot of drama, because I think people are exhausted from the arguing and personalized drama. I want to see the issues being the forefront. The issues and the solutions being the forefront of all of these campaigns, but then also the sportsmanship of it, to make sure that after a primary, people are endorsing the person that gets over the finish line, or the 2 people that get over the finish line, so that they can keep their bases still showing up after the primary. Because in a community where, even the race with LaVon Bracey Davis and Rashawn Young, I expected the turnout to be way higher, especially since that same time, every time you open your phone, it's like Trump is setting our Constitution on fire. Like, is everyone not screaming on the inside, and wouldn't that trigger folks to like run to the polls? So, I hope that could be the benefit of having 15 people in a race.
We'll see. Maybe
I'm
hope
too
you're
optimistic.
Right.
Yeah.
I hope you're right. The challenge with that argument is it's a nonpartisan race.
Right.
And so for good or bad, our system is a two-party system. And most candidates, not all, need the machinery of their party to get them through. If not their party, at least third-party interests, good or bad. I'm not making the argument either way. Number of races the Democratic Party has won locally have been helped by the local Democratic Party stepping in to say, hey, we need to help this individual out. And because of that additional help, they've been successful in races that would have been challenges before.
Well, you're now the new Senior Caucus president. And I heard that your first meeting was door-to-door, shoulder-to-shoulder packed.
It was a small room.
But I mean, that brings me hope, because if, communities that we're trying to target are aging out, then that means that there's a section of seniors that maybe we could engage in a deeper, more meaningful way that we could bring to the table to organize. Because I feel like a lot of seniors want to feel excited and feel like they're not being forgotten.
Correct. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think, and I just said earlier, I need to hear new voices and new ideas in the party. And that should always be our emphasis. However, when you look at the percentages, the age group I'm in is still the highest turnout age group. Now that's slowly being surpassed. I think one election we were surpassed by the larger number of young people coming up behind us. We need to keep both in the game. Our silver seniors and our youthful millennials, and who's after millennials? X's and all of those. My sons.
Gen Z and then Gen X.
Oh my gosh. So
I'm
many.
scared.
I have 3 kids in 3 different groupings, now that I think about it. Yeah, well, 2 of them are close. They're Europe. The youngest one is in the next group by a year. It's they're my 2 sons. They're my youngest of my 3 kids. Get their information from different sources than I got it from. Even their oldest sister gets it from.
Right.
But they get it from social media, all 3. I got mine from TV.
Yeah.
All right. The normal channels that I got news from no longer exist, even though they're still on the air.
Right.
Even I go to my phone and look at get the news now. I don't look at TV as much as I used to. The cable channels have switched corporate ownership. And what I remember as MSNBC, CNN are totally different.
Oh my goodness. Than
what they were when they started. So where news comes from shapes your opinion. And, that from my perspective has been bad for the body politics.
Right. So what ways are you engaging seniors and getting them excited, and what plans do you have?
Well, one of the reasons the meeting was well attended was because we reached beyond our membership.
Okay.
You've been involved in caucuses. Typically, when we send out notices for a meeting, we send it to our membership listing. Well, just because they're on the membership list doesn't mean they're active, doesn't mean they're going to show up, just means they're interested in the issues that caucus is expounding. We went beyond that list. We of course sent the notice to our membership list, but we sent it to and this is a strategy I have to give the former chair of the DEC credit for. Literally, wherever we meet, we go a 2-mile radius and target seniors in that area who may not have ever heard of the DEC, who may not have ever heard of the Senior Caucus, may not have ever been invited to their party's events at any time and point. And so that's what showed up at the meeting. And I would say about half of them were people who got a text from us saying, hey, come on, join, be a part of the discussion. And we had some great candidates that day. And they got to match names with faces. Actually, we had primarily candidates in District 7, not all of them, but some of them. And we'll get the rest of them later on. And then we had, I can't remember what he's running for House District 35, Eric Gray, out, and they were just wonderful. The presentations by all of them were great. And that's what seniors need to hear. And then we need to tie the intellect of those seniors into actual work.
Right. Well, I'm excited about that because I think that's the momentum that we need to not be so scared of all these races that are happening all at the same time. If we can do what you do and replicate what you're doing in these different, caucuses that are targeting different audiences to ensure that people are like informed, it's so hard to get information out to people. Just the changes with the vote by mail, like you said, it's an obstacle, and it feels like every year there's new obstacles now with petitions and inactive voters. And when you change your license, whether or not you need to change your voter registration and keep your signature up to date. I mean, there's so much we have to communicate because they're actively taking away our rights. And then you have all these candidates.
Can I share something that came up at our last meeting? A senior followed the law that changed in terms of, once you change your license, what that triggers.
Yeah.
So he decided to go in, and I won't tell the story as well as he does. He decided to go in early to change his license, even though his birthday falls later in the year. So he goes in early, gets a new license. Well, they give him a new driver's license number. So that's what's going to happen when you go in, which triggers, I don't know if he went in or it automatically triggers. I can't remember that part. Getting a new voter ID card from the supervisors of election. Now, it's wonderful we have a competent supervisor of election here in Orange County.
Now.
But in other places, absolutely.
Not last election.
In other places, he still hasn't gotten his card. So if the August election was next Tuesday, he would be in trouble.
Right.
Because he hasn't gotten his updated card. Again, I don't know if that would be problematic, how that would be handled, but he doesn't have his new card based on his driver's license.
There's a lot of confusion and a lot of gray area. And I think that's all intentional.
Yes.
That's like Jim Crow era politics. They're trying to make it, extremely difficult to keep up with everything and change the laws so that people can't go and pick up bunches of vote by mail ballots and deliver them. Like, they want to create obstacles so that nonprofits that do this type of work, like League of Women Voters, are scrambling to try and figure out how to adjust, because that's time taken away from their ability to organize and do outreach and do these other things. I have another question to get you in trouble.
Uh-oh.
How is the state level Democratic Party adjusting and keeping up with this fight?
Well, again, when I was cutting my teeth in politics, the ODP, Ohio Democratic Party, was like king of the hill. We controlled the House, we controlled the Senate. ODP literally chose the candidates in collaboration with the local parties. Now, that was a good thing or a bad thing, depending on your perspective and who got chosen. I don't see that here. And I say this with the greatest amount of respect to our incumbents who have been incredible fighters in the House and Senate. But there are two entities, House Democratic Victory and Senate Democratic Victory, that fund, from my perspective, and I may be wrong, and someone call in, well, they can't call in, but someone correct me when they see me, that typically fund incumbents, where I would like them to fund more candidates who are on the cusp and need that extra push over to win. In terms of the Florida Democratic Party, I think at some point, and it may happen this year, we met last week and did some great training and strategic thinking, but I think at some point we're going to need a leader and a strategic plan, because that's what state committee people were asking for. What is our plan to win?
Right.
And unless you know the direction you're headed, even if I disagree with it, if the party as a whole knew the direction that they were headed, I think that would get us all focused. And then you need, for every Barack Obama, there was a David Pluffin. For every Bill Clinton, there was a Raging Cajun. Even George Bush had Karl Rove. So you need both a political and intellectual head to accomplish this. And I don't think any of us feel we've yet arrived. We're in better position than we were 2 or 4 years ago. I will say that. Others will argue that, but I'll say we have done better. But are we at the point where we can truly be competitive, where we can run candidates in every race? Like, this ought to be the year we have a candidate in every Florida House race. This ought to be the year, if there's contested Florida state Senate races, we ought to have candidates running. Granted, resources are thin, but voters need an option. And if we're not giving them options, then we have failed at the state level.
100%. Well, just to be devil's advocate, even though I agree with you 100%, I wonder if some of the reasons why we don't have like a Democratic Party, Project 2026, that's like a PDF that's being shared around so that they could like actually go out and fundraise off of it with a very clear, publicly facing plan of what we need to do to win. I wonder if part of the reason why we're not doing that is because we don't want to show too much of our hand, because as soon as we outline where our investments are going to be going, the Republicans are going to go out to their PACs and get triple the amount of resources to dump into those areas, which they're doing anyway. But I think we catch them off guard sometimes when, from a grassroots perspective, we have, maybe not from a party perspective, but we have candidates that start to like really gain momentum, like we're seeing in Palm Beach County right now, where I wonder when the party starts to get involved and starts to become public, it triggers the Republicans to retaliate and to just build off of our plan.
It could. I have never experienced that. Yeah, I've lived in, so my home state is Ohio. I've lived in Tennessee, and Tennessee is now just Republican held. But when I got there, Democrats controlled the House and Senate. And the Democratic Party in Tennessee, although weak today, recruited candidates. That was one thing I could count on the state party to do in Tennessee. I don't see that done as much here in Florida, except at the local level. I do think state parties, in the broadest sense, not specifically say, hey, we're going to focus on Orange County, but we're going to run candidates in every race. That's a broad goal, and we're going to ask our local affiliates to find us candidates in the counties where we have races. That's not tipping your hand. Republicans do that all the time. Now, and this is where I agree with you, let me just pick out a race. I think Senate District 10 is up this year. If we say we're going to run against
Jason Broder.
Yes. yeah, you're tipping your hand. But if I go to foul, anybody can go foul.
Right.
It may not even be orchestrated by the state party.
Yeah, I just, at least the way that I feel when I talk to my Republican friends, that the party infrastructure in Florida is not where the battleground is happening. The battleground is happening where the mega PACs that are kind of handpicking their own candidates and running them with full funding and resources backing them, they don't even really rely on the party infrastructure from the Republican side. They're getting outside guarantee money, or DeSantis has his PACs, and they're falling in line and recruiting usually corporate CEOs of the same groups that are sending armies up to lobby up in Tallahassee and not really using the party infrastructure to run. And I see that a lot in Democratic races where like CEOs of FPL and stuff like that are running as a Democrat just because that's the number of voters in that area. But it's not that the party recruited that person and hand chose that person. It's like the PACs and the outside entities that are trying to just gain political power in their own way. They have their own chessboard that they're playing on. And then we're over here trying to just move our pawns, you know?
So let me ask you this. Let me just, as a counter, say this and give it some context. I think both of us agree that there's too much money influencing who gets elected in politics. Mm-hmm. Having said that, why doesn't that infrastructure exist on our side? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Why don't we have PACs? I mean, we do, but not that would equal or come close to what they have on the Republican side.
Right.
We don't have that because for the last 30 years, we've been out of power in some form or fashion. Mm-hmm. And so unless we prove ourselves again this year, either at the gubernatorial election or winning a couple of constitutional offices at the state or winning one of the houses. Because remember, this is the year, from my perspective, that's going to affect what happens in 2030 after the census.
Right. I've been trying to wrap my mind around this since I started really thinking about politics. I'm still open to be challenged on this thought, but I really think it's because our base expects legislators to do for them. I think the Republican base expects their legislators to take something away from someone else that they think is getting something that's not deserving, like immigrants. Mm-hmm. And because our base expects something, it's harder to align fully with PACs because PACs want to exploit the capitalism that we have past the extent of caring about human rights, caring about DEI, caring about most of the fights that we have are not about Democrat or Republican. It's about regulations on corporations, whether or not corporations should be given the power to hire and fire people that have disabilities or based on race or based on, removing protections for workers. That's really what the culture wars metastasize into from a political party front. But that keeps us distracted from really the corporations and the PACs that fund these parties do not want to be on the hook for having to defend the rights of their workers, having to pay living wages. And unfortunately, on our side, we've been kind of politically groomed, for lack of a better term, to want basic human rights and workers' rights.
So let me offer you a counterpoint to what you just said. If outgoing state rep Anna Escamani were chairman of a committee, right? Mm-hmm. Senator LaVon Bracey Davis was chairwoman of a committee in the Senate. What we're responding to today, we wouldn't be responding to because the issues would be different, the agenda would be different. And until we get to the point that whether it's the Panhandle or Palm Beach, we're winning in those areas, we're going to be in the minority and therefore not set the agenda.
Right.
You're right. You're absolutely right. That's what we've been responding to. But until we start setting the agenda, and that means being a majority somewhere, we're going to be always responding to these issues that make no sense, that don't improve the living standards of most people, even those who are now in my home state. The farmers in my home state are crying because they can't get their crops harvested. The Southern Florida, I mean, it's not Southern Florida, Southern Ohio is, we always call it Ohio, Kentucky, because literally they're one and the same. They're deep Trump supporters. Many of those counties are now saying they regret their vote. Now, I don't know if they'll change their vote.
That's the other part.
In 2 years, but they regret their vote. We'll see. The test is going to be, because right now there was 2 polls that came out that show both the Democratic candidate for governor is leading by double digits. Long way to go until November, but the very fact that that's true. And the Senate candidate, my former boss, is leading the Senate race, not by double digits, but so we have to see what's going to happen in November. But here in Florida, until we set the agenda, we're always going to be fighting what I call the battle from the rear.
Can we set an agenda without pissing off corporate donors?
Yes.
Can we set an agenda that the people are demanding? Because look at these union busting bills that are coming. Mm-hmm. I cannot wrap my mind around how Republicans are able to unapologetically attack unions. Of course, they cut out the police union and the firefighters union. Mm-hmm. We could talk about that in a minute. But they attack unions so unapologetically and then still continue to get the vote.
Well, let me tell you why I understand it. Let me rephrase that. Because they're not scared of us.
Right.
They're scared of being primaried more so than a Democrat beating them in a gerrymandered district. I think that's why they do what they do. But
so many Republicans are parts of unions.
Well,
or their quality of life would be better if they would be a part of a union. You know, they would have somebody in their corner fighting with them, not just by themselves, you know. And so I just feel like so many Republicans have been kind of duped by some of the rhetoric that has distracted them from basic core rights that they could be accelerating instead of being depleted from the Republican side, but they keep showing up to vote for these Republicans. I mean, DeSantis, for example, his popularity, as we saw when he tried to run for president, he's not very popular. And I think that's why Charlie Crist looked appealing, because he was a Republican and then he went over to NPA, then he went to Democrat. And I think he was able, not the greatest communicator, but I think he was able to maybe be a safer feeling step into switching a vote away from DeSantis. And I think that's why so many people aligned behind him. But still, turnout was low on the Republican side as well, but still DeSantis made it over the finish line, when I know so many Republicans were so put off by DeSantis. It's like our base expects so much from our legislators, and the Republicans base expect the bare minimum. And even when they don't get it, they almost like that they're punishing immigrants.
Yeah.
You know, I talked to Republicans, and I had someone tell me, I don't like I'm having a hard time putting food on the table for my kids. And I don't like that, New York is putting immigrants up in 5-star hotels. And I'm like, do you like that the FEMA money that's supposed to save you from a hurricane is going to a $430 million detention center in South Florida? And he's like, oh, I didn't think of it like that.
That goes back, I think, you correct me if I'm wrong, where do they get their information?
Right.
And how do they act on the information they get?
Right.
And what that information forms in terms of voters. I mean, I've heard some of the craziest, and I can't remember the radio station, as to why certain people voted the way they did, just off information they got on the internet that may or may not be verifiable. And it's, you can vote the way you want to for any reason. I'm of the opinion I don't have to give you a litmus test, but at least if you're going to engage in a conversation with me out on the streets about why you voted the way you did, make it make sense. I don't have to agree with it, but make it make sense.
Think 3 steps further than where you thought.
Are you better off today than were you 14 months ago?
Yeah, a poll just came out this week, which obviously we're going to be sharing this way after, but a poll came out this week that 100% of MAGA voters, not Republican voters, MAGA voters.
Oh, I saw that.
Are supportive of Trump's bombing in Iran.
I saw that.
That to me is so interesting when, of course, the economic repercussions are going to come soon. They're not here yet, but we're already seeing $4 a gallon for gas. And where they get their information from feeds into their mindset of how this is going to impact them and their quality of life.
Well, even gas prices have gone up, but the most important thing to come is fertilizer.
I know.
Which is already, not the price of fertilizer yet, just the price of the tariffs and all that have already hit farmers. The cost of fertilizer, because a good bit of it's made in that region and we import it, is going to go up because of what has been hit and damaged so far by the bombings that have taken place. So,
and apparently their main thoroughfare is the Strait of Hormuz. So I don't know what we're going to do with the cost of food. I mean, they're going to feel it. They're not going to have Joe Biden to blame. And an immigrant, most of the immigrants are either self-deporting, in concentration camps, or, are hiding at home. So they're not going to have.
Well, take my hometown. My hometown became the butt of jokes, unfortunately, during the campaign when Trump made fun of Springfield, Ohio, because of our Haitian brothers and sisters who came to my hometown, who literally, when I was mayor, we had between 60 and 70,000 people. During the Great Recession, that dropped down to 50 to 55. About 10 to 15,000 Haitian immigrants moved into the city. One of the industries that recruited many of those immigrants happens to be best friends with my family. My oldest sister was their babysitter. Over 10 to 15,000 came into Springfield, Ohio. Literally, their small businesses that they created, along with the economy, the general national economy improving, rebuilt our town.
Wow.
I mean, no campaign promises I made, the current mayor made, would have done it without those new citizens being in Springfield. 5 to 10,000, the last word I got, have left the city, have moved out. We're going to feel the pain just because we lost, within 14 months, 5 to 10,000 citizens.
I mean, look at the schools that are closing here, and I think it's so funny when people say, well, it just makes my kids feel uncomfortable when they're in a classroom and there's other kids speaking a different language, and it makes my kid uncomfortable. I'm like, I'm Native American. It makes me feel uncomfortable when you speak English and I don't know my native tongue. You know what I mean? But so I'm super excited about all the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
And I think that it sets a, precedent for how we could do outreach across the state. I'm curious, though, since you're working so hard and, you've never actually retired, it feels like. What do you do to replenish yourself so that you can put your feet on the ground and work even more the next day?
I hate to say I sleep. I just sleep unbelievable hours. I golf. I travel a little. I go away, not fly out. I just travel to some secluded, restful, peaceful town away from, my house and the work I do politically and the work I do 8 to 5 and just enjoy what life has given me.
Travel.
Yeah.
Well, golf is not easy.
Golf is not easy.
My husband just started golf and he comes home like with muscles that are in pain that you never thought would hurt. Like this part of your neck.
Yeah.
Like this hurts.
Yeah.
Who knew that there were like muscles here you have to engage, you know? And I'm sure when it comes to sleeping, you know, I think sometimes in politics, people feel this sense of anxiety if they're not always doing something. And so I think sleeping is really, really important.
Rest your body. Your body is your vessel, and give it as much rest, relaxation as possible.
Well, if you had a message to give to some of the seniors that might find you and the Senior Caucus through this podcast, you have any plugs you want to give?
Wow, that's a
or
great
words of inspiration.
Great question. We need to stay engaged. Our votes do count. Doesn't make a difference of our age, whether we're youthful 60s or 55. I think is the new 55 to 85. It doesn't make a difference. We need to stay engaged. Our voices need to be heard. They're coming after, not only are they coming after programs and issues that affect young people, but trust me, within the next year or so, they'll come after Social Security.
Oh my goodness.
And we need to be on the front lines for that. We fought too hard. Many of us paid money into that system. All of us paid money into that system, pardon me. And we need to be on the front lines with our younger brothers and sisters.
Yeah, you know, I'm starting to realize now that all these voter suppression laws, it's not just about race, it's also about age.
Yes, absolutely.
Like the signature requirements to ensure that your signature matches your driver's license or your voter registration card on, you know, I feel like part of that is if you're a senior, if you have Parkinson's or if you have some health issues, your signature is going to drastically look different.
Well, can I go even beyond that? It's about gender too.
Mm-hmm.
If you're married,
right,
who carries their marriage certificate around with them, first and foremost?
I don't know where mine is.
Or birth certificate, without rummaging through the attic to try to find it. And someone like me, if I were a female, I would literally have to request it from another state.
Right.
So those are the complications I think that will arise from what has now law or soon to be law in the state of Florida.
So here's some things that I think seniors can do.
Okay.
Now, I saw a lot of these handwritten postcards that I know I receive for different campaigns. So cute. I frame them.
Do you really?
I put them up on my wall. I love them. They're so adorable. And they're effective because a mailer to me is like,
I agree.
This is just the pretty face of what I'm trying to communicate. But seeing somebody take time out of their day to write a handwritten message means that that campaign has some type of momentum in a real relationship with the people. Mm-hmm. So postcards work for me. There's text banking. There's phone banking. There's even just liking and sharing things on social media actually does go a long way, in my opinion, because a lot of candidates, it takes a while for them to build a following. What are some other things that seniors can do?
Well, we're going to get them on text-based banking. I got to have a conversation with someone at the DEC to make that happen. So thank you for echoing and elevating that idea. Some seniors get out and engage in door-to-door still.
Great.
There were a group of us who have done so in District 7 to kind of make them more aware of that they're a new district. Those are the communities of Pine Hills, Eatonville, Maitland, and College Park, I believe.
Right.
Interesting mix of communities. We'll see what happens there. But we're going to do a number of things. Phone banking is key, and you can do it from home via Zoom. We're going to set that up probably, I think I'm going to bring it to the board in May to set up a phone bank for June, and we'll do it June all the way through until November. And
it's really fun.
It is.
You know, especially when you can do it with other people. because you can like get food and make a day of it. And I think, I do a lot of support for folks that are living in extended stay hotels, and many of which are seniors that don't have any family here. And you can kind of tell there are some folks that are just sitting inside and they haven't had contact with the outside world in a long time. And those are the people that I hope we can reach, because sometimes you just need a sense of purpose to be able to get excited enough to leave your room, especially when you're a senior. And I don't want people to feel forgotten.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think the Republicans are relying on people to expect their vote by mail ballot to just come when they're actively stripping that right away. In Massachusetts, where I'm from, you register to vote at 18, you get your vote by mail for the rest of your life.
Yep.
And Oregon, it just shows up.
Oregon, I think, is 100%.
Right.
Vote by mail.
So I'm just so grateful, Tim, and thank you so, so much. And I'm so excited to win this year in 2026 in partnership with you.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
Thank you.
Let's do it. Thank you all for watching. Have a great one.
Take care.
Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you heard today, please comment, subscribe, and share. And visit organizingtovictory.com so that you can learn more about all the ways that we're going to be organizing this year. It is the most important election year of our lives. I know you hear that all the time, but we here at Organizing to Victory hope to not just talk about the issues, but to organize around the issues. So please share, subscribe, and follow us. And we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.